Good stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Mr. George Loutas, founder of Hive Law.
Oh, thank you, Mike. Thank you for having me.
You are a graduate from the University of Adelaide in Australia, head of real estate and construction at Maples and Calder for 15 years before you started Hive. So this is a man of serious experience. And you're my go-to professional when it comes to conveyance work.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Well, you know what I really like most about our relationship, George, is that you're so user-friendly. You know, that whole bedside manner concept when you talk about doctors and stuff, it's just you're available, you're responsive, and it really, really means a lot. I can call you, you always answer your phone, and then that means that the client's experience is always very good as well.
Excellent. Look, it's always a pleasure to service clients, and clients come first.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they have to, otherwise they don't come back, and others don't come after them. George, we both founded our businesses in Cayman, and whilst we know it's a bit of a haul sometimes setting up a business, there's a lot of moving parts: trade and business licenses, hiring, recruitment, the whole thing. What stood out most to you about? Well, first of all, 15 years of Maples and Calder. What made you set up Hive?
Well, I mean, I was very happy at Maples and Calder for all those years, but there was a time, and it was time to move on, I thought. It was during the pandemic, and I needed some flexibility. I have my children who live in the United States, and I thought, look, I needed some more flexibility traveling backwards and forwards.
Yeah, that's right.
I wanted to set up a firm which was remote and promoted remote working. And that was really the ethos behind it. And that's the ethos of Hive, to promote remote working for everyone.
And it's actually feasible, right? I mean,
it is feasible. And look what's happened, since the pandemic.
Well, exactly.
Working remotely.
Sometimes when I call you, I say, where in the world are you?
It can be
But
anywhere.
it actually makes no difference, funnily enough.
It's seamless.
And that's the point.
With technology, it's absolutely seamless.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can work from anywhere in the world. And as long as the technology is there to back you up, that's fine in terms of client service.
Yeah, again, like I said, the response time is incredible, and just being available, it makes no difference from the client's perspective. Makes no difference.
That's great.
So what is your day-to-day? What does that actually involve?
Well,
are you just real estate? Is it strictly
primarily
conveyance?
real estate and construction. So dedicated to that. But look, most mornings are waking up very early, handling administrative tasks, handling the people that work for us, making sure everything's in order, and then working right through the day till about, whenever.
Whenever it takes. He's available 24 hours a day. Actually, one of the things that I remember when we met up in Tampa, I was up there with my brother and we had that coffee meeting. Do you remember?
I do remember that. That's great, yes.
And over the years, I've obviously come to get to know you a bit better. But what I really admire about you is your consistency with exercise, right?
That's dropped.
Maybe not right now.
8 weeks.
Okay. No, come on, George. You're consistent with your exercise.
I mean, you're like that too. So look, that's a lifestyle decision, obviously, because having dedication or discipline in terms of exercise translates to the workplace too. I know you're very much like that.
I'm such a firm believer that you've got to look after number one. Look after yourself. It not only gives you the ability to handle stressful situations and coping skills in difficult times, but also just a general consistent steadiness when it comes to running a business. Because as we both realize, that there's a lot of moving parts. It's actually can get kind of difficult at times. They said start a business. They said it would be fun.
It's not fun in the sense that it's a great responsibility.
Yeah. Exactly.
It can be fun. It is fun at times, but there's that element of responsibility and dedication.
Yeah. And it turns into 24/7 as a result of your responsibility. Yeah, absolutely. So what current trends have you noticed about, the current economic situation as we have come to experience, all of us?
Right.
Interest rates, inflation, cost of living, insurance is almost doubled, frankly. That's home insurance. In fact, even health insurance has gone up. But the economic pressures on a lot of all sectors of the market, from entry level to lower socioeconomics, all the way up to the high net worths, have all been impacted. What trends do you see happening as it relates to Cayman's real estate markets? I mean, that's a bit of an open question there.
I mean, the market has changed significantly over the past 12 months. there's quite a lot of activity, I'd say, in high-level real estate at the minute.
Still ticking along nicely.
It is still ticking along nicely. In terms of defaults, etc., I think that's starting to emanate as well. I think the middle market is really taking an impact. But there's a lot of activity in the high market, which primarily I think the buyers are really overseas buyers. I'm sure.
Yeah, I can attest to that absolutely. What I see happening is that, and I tend to use this term, and it perhaps isn't the most politically correct thing to say, but the way I say it is that the rest of the world is on fire.
It is.
Be it political, financial, social issues, whether it's gun violence in the States or energy issues in Europe, obviously the war in Ukraine as it continues. And just by default, Cayman is a nice sort of safety net. And we've noticed, and we've had conversations about this, about Henley and Partners global relocation specialists have been reaching out to consider Cayman a little bit more, whereas it hadn't necessarily appeared on their options list before, because we have a residency by investment as opposed to citizenship by investment in the Cayman Islands. Now, you can get citizenship, but it's through the course of time, whereas a lot of the other jurisdictions that they deal with are more on a citizenship by investment. But because of, people ran away from wherever to Monaco and Luxembourg and Singapore and, Dubai, even Australia, they're now looking for other places to run away to. And Cayman has started appearing on their radar more and more.
Exactly. There are a lot of overseas people wanting to relocate here. And they're looking at it from a jurisdictional point of view. They're looking at the lifestyle. They're looking at the safety, tranquility. It's a first world jurisdiction. And
do you know what's interesting? I've noticed the conversations over the years have evolved a little bit more. We've always said Cayman's, safe and nice to live in and everything, but the priority on a lot of people's lists, these high net worth individuals that are considering Cayman, is safety.
It is.
It's suddenly shot up higher and higher to be it's a higher priority than ever before, and it's something that perhaps we've always known that Cayman's a very safe place, but we perhaps took it for granted.
I think that's right, and quality of life as well.
And well, that brings quality of life. That brings the comfort of just knowing that, generally speaking, you're safe. You can leave your car door unlocked. Perhaps you shouldn't, because there are still humans around. As Attenborough said, that humans are parasites on Mother Earth, which I suppose is not that wrong when there's 8 billion plus of us. Go figure. That's a different conversation for a different day. But Cayman's safety and lifestyle were multi-international, and I think there's something like 150 or 160 different sporting associations. About 15 years ago, the Cayman Islands Red Cross was ranked as the #1 Red Cross generator of donations per capita in the world, in the Red Cross network. So we're a very generous, wealthy island. Not to say we don't experience the usual social diseases, be it the divide between rich and poor and stuff. That's a never ending situation. But by all accounts, Cayman is just an incredible place. I
definitely.
I'm from here, as you know, and I've had the privilege of being able to travel to many parts of the world, and wherever I go, I ask myself the same question: could I live here? Could I raise a family here? Could I work here? Could I enjoy this environment? And there are many, many wonderful places around the world, but somehow Cayman always seems to trump it. Perhaps there's the level of comfort and familiarity, but it just seems like it's easy, it's convenient, it's safe, it's clean, the police don't carry guns,
There are a lot of positive ingredients here, and that's the best way to put it, I'd say. Other places in the world, they're very good too, but in terms of all the ingredients coming together, Cayman is unique.
Yeah, exactly. I suppose it's like the all-roundedness. It may not be the most beautiful or the most dynamic or the most progressive, but all-rounded. It's pretty much, it ticks the lion's share of the boxes that you would want to run a business, live, raise a family, invest.
And that's why we're seeing, I'd say, a lot of interest from overseas at the moment. And it's actually getting more. You can see that.
So the population at the moment, debatable. As you know, Nick, my brother, is like the guru of immigration and residency law, and he calculates this stuff, and he keeps his finger on the pulse of Cayman's population growth and, number of work permits versus people renouncing their citizenship, and PR applications, permanent residency applications, versus locals, and he estimates that it's actually more like 85,000. I think government feels that number is, and they put it in the press relatively recently. I think they said it was 79 or 78 or something like that. But the point is that the trend is that population growth is just continuing to grow and grow and grow in Cayman, and that's obviously evident by the level of new construction and the absorption rates in filling and taking those properties are selling, whilst it's a whole new conversation when we talk about affordability and the cost of construction. And
exactly.
But supply is just continuing to, for the second or third year in a row, is just continually to stay really low.
Right.
Across all sectors, which means that the upward pressure on pricing is sort of standing strong. We're not expecting the current economic situation to necessarily have a negative impact on pricing. And a lot of buyers are out there. I call it the confidence crisis, where they're just sort of waiting for interest rates to come down, or they're waiting for the values of properties to come down. But I'm afraid it depends on the sector. I don't see it happening.
I see that happening. That's the same in the US as well.
It is. Yeah. I think there's the, actually it's my brother. He asks me almost every time we speak, so how's the market? I'm like, Nick, it doesn't change that quickly. It's a ebb and flow.
It's ebb and flow.
Ask me at the end of the year how the year was.
So in terms of absorption rates, what are you seeing?
Depending on the sector.
Yes. And it's right. You're right. You have to analyze it sector by sector.
You do. And each sector, in fact, interacts, reacts, and relates to other sectors differently.
Exactly.
So when something happens in one particular sector, it's going to have a different impact on another sector, but how those two interact within themselves is also different. For example, you can have a high net worth individual that's come to Cayman and they've bought a beautiful home on the beachfront, waterfront, canal front, and they've got multiple children perhaps. And for their PR applications, their children need to invest at 2.4 million being the current threshold for the permanent residency status. Anything, because of the current interest rates, anything below 2 million has slowed down a lot. So there's a slight uptick in supply in those sectors, and it's more the higher end of that sector being the 1 to 2 million, because the cost to construct is so high that the developers are having to ask top dollar. So even one bedrooms, gosh, it depends on the development, but they'll be 750 to 1.5 million
exactly
for just a one bedroom. So what's that's doing is pushing people further and further out, which is creating more and more activity in the eastern districts.
Right.
So just outside of town, like Prospect or Red Bay, which is before Prospect, is starting to see a lot more activity, but it's just ticking along at the moment.
Right.
Anything from 2 to 5 million has slowed down a lot. Not as much as those under the 2 million.
So 2 to 5 has slowed down a lot, but how about 5 up?
5 up is busy.
It's busy, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's what I was going to say. Exactly.
Now it depends on the time of the year. Of course, there's always a seasonal factor to consider as well. Summer, generally, things slow down.
A little.
There's less activity. When the weather's nicer in the northern territories, be it Europe or North America, people generally will go on holiday in those places because it's beautiful, right? The weather's nice. But when things start towards the end of the year, we're projecting Q4 2023 is going to be a busy time.
Exactly. And it's been quite a busy year for all of us, I'd say.
It has, again, depending on the sector. So do you generally only deal with, I suppose I only deal with you when it comes to high net worth stuff.
There we go.
Yeah.
So it's generally that sector. And I'd say that this year's been really busy.
So you only deal with, certainly from my perspective, higher end properties, the 5 million up?
Look, we deal with all sorts of properties. Having said that, we specialize in that sector, the 5 million up.
And when you say construction, is that pre-construction developments?
Everything.
So have you noticed any particular trends in new developments coming to market?
Actually, that's quite interesting. I'd say there's a scarcity, as you know, of pre-construction on 7 Mile Beach.
Yep.
The sites are limited now. So we're dealing with the same sorts of developments we had advertised a few years ago. 7 Mile Beach is a totally other...
It's its own being. Yeah.
Exactly. That's another market in particular. Prices there are going through the roof, and they will continue to.
So
there's a scarcity.
There's a scarcity. And you're absolutely right. 7 Mile Beach is its own market within itself.
It's unique.
It's almost the foundation of Cayman's property confidence. 5-7 years ago, when I was first pulled into the Lacovia consideration as a redevelopment, we did an analysis of comparable markets within the region. And we also considered Florida and I think Hawaii, and I want to say Monaco as well. We did an analysis there on the price per square foot for high-end second home and or residences. And we recognized that Cayman for decades had been behind the curve.
Exactly. And I think that's what happened.
We did a catch up.
Actually caught up.
Yeah.
Everyone said, wow, this is incredible. Prices have just gone through the roof. But really, Cayman had to catch up.
So up until about
That's what it did.
Up until about 2018, pre-COVID, Cayman, you could get a 7 Mile Beach 3-bed condo for around about $850, maybe $900 per square foot.
That's right.
US dollars per square foot. Whereas other jurisdictions, anyway, BVI, Maui, Turks and Caicos, Florida, you'd be pushing more like $1,500 per square foot to $2,000 per square foot, depending on the actual product. So we were like way under.
Exactly.
So when considering the pricing for Lacovia, and of course COVID factor just sort of like really acted as a catalyst in pushing that through, there was some big upticks in pricing, and that just caught on through everybody. I mean, Seafire Kimpton was probably the highest per square foot asking prices in those earlier years. I say earlier years, 2018, 19. And then, of course, everything shot up. I expect and anticipate the current trends are showing in the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to be pushing $2,500 to $3,000 per square foot. Now, having said that, there are already the watermark on 7 Mile Beach, incredible development, Fraser Wellens development. That's pushing $2,500 per square foot for those units, and I think it's just going to carry on. That's my projection.
It will carry on.
Generally, over time, values and pricing goes up and up and up.
I agree.
Now, that's obviously the higher end sector. Lower end, the cost of construction, as we know, has gone up, which has slowed down development. I own a piece of land, lovely piece of land, and I was initially going to build probably a couple of years ago. But now the cost to construct has gone up so much that either the house has to get a lot smaller, or I just put the press the pause button and hold off. Do you see... it's tough, right? Because
it is tough. Yes.
We're kind of in the same industry, but we're not. What are your thoughts on the construction prices and where you see that going? Think that's going to change?
Until there's a supply chain correction, I really can't see prices getting lower. No. I think we're hitting benchmarks.
Yes, I think they've settled down in certain areas. I know that some contractors have sort of softened a little bit because the costs of these commodities have stabilized. And again, the Ukrainian war has impacted steel.
Exactly.
But I think, gosh, which direction does this go? I mean, there's probably going to be, so let's safely assume we've got an increase in population, therefore an increase in demand. And demand is going to theoretically increase the confidence of developers to start building more and more stuff. And when you've got an increase in supply, things will start to settle down and things should become a little bit more affordable.
I think so. But I think we're a long way away from that.
3 years? 5 years? 7?
3.
3. Yeah, it's a...
and let's not talk about interest rates too. They're not going anywhere for a while, I don't think.
Interesting. Okay, so my theory is that this month the Fed are going to do their next review.
Okay.
Because of the confidence crisis, as I call it, they'll probably not do any changes. If they do a zero change on this next Fed meeting on interest rates, I see that as almost an indicator that we've probably reached the peak. And the confidence will then start to come back with a ton of buyers that have been on the fence saying, I'm not going to buy now. It doesn't make sense. I can't afford that level of that interest, the cost. So they're just going to continue renting. But if they finally there's an indication that we've reached the peak, then I'm going to see almost like the confidence floodgates are going to open, and there's going to be not a rush, but a certain marked increase, a shift in the number of buyers coming back to the market, which of course impacts the supply, and that supply is going to be depleted even more than it already is. And then we'll see upward pressure on pricing again.
I mean, what I can see also in the US market, people just can't buy houses anymore. They can't afford them. People are renting, and rents are going up.
And rent's going up, and you're paying somebody else's mortgage every time you pay your rent.
I mean, I remember I think it's in Brickell in Miami, rents used to be $2,000 for a condo, or $2,500. Now they're about $5,000 or $6,000.
Yeah. Yeah, and the same thing's happening in Cayman, frankly, right?
Same things in Cayman.
It's pushing people further. I know that certain hotel chains here in Cayman have had real issues after COVID trying to bring in hospitality staff.
Yes.
They had real issues finding accommodation for their staff. And what they found is that people are paying really top dollar for something that is no longer in a convenient location. So now they're further and further out.
Exactly.
And they're trying to double down on the number of people staying in, so you're sharing with a bunch of people. And that lifestyle isn't necessarily as pleasant as possible. And then the hospitality staff leave. So there's been some hiring issues for those chains, the hospitality industry. Listen, it's not all doom and gloom. I think we've probably got, these are the natural growing pains of our country, our economy, our society, our population growth. It brings stuff with it, and it's an ever changing situation.
Exactly. Yeah.
I have every confidence that we're bound for glory. Cayman is an incredible place, and whilst we may not be perfect, and we do have certain areas that could do with some improvement, I think we're on the right track. 15 years of Maples. Tell me about the sort of transactions you were doing there. We've been involved with many transactions, of course, but what sort of work did you really dig into and continue to dig into, I suppose?
It was a varied 15 years, but a lot of hotel financing transactions. I think, from memory, we transacted the Westin in terms of the financing about 5 or 6 times. I think the Marriott financing 3 or 4 times.
Right.
There was a huge matter we did for 54 parcels of land on the 7 Mile Beach Belt. That was about £130 million. That was quite interesting.
You said pounds?
Pounds. Yes, it was pounds sterling.
Was it really?
It was. That was very interesting. Developments. There was one excellent developer we did work for.
Oh, Vista Del Mar.
I used to do work.
Guillermo Freitag.
Exactly. He was a lovely
gentleman. Bless him. He's passed on now. His family are still investors in Cayman, and I correspond with them at the moment with different factors, different bits and bobs. But was he not the a family member, a relative of the Jose Cuervo?
He was,
right?
And he was born in Tequila, in the town of Tequila in Mexico. He was a larger-than-life character.
Oh, what a character. He's a tough guy.
Tough guy, but very fair as well.
Yeah.
Excellent client. Excellent. Larger-than-life. Lovely guy. Imposing physically, too.
Imposing, yeah, a really big figure.
6'2" Mexican.
Yeah. But yeah, that was an incredible development. He bought a chunk of land from the from the Austrian group, right? Because the Japanese originally did Vista Del Mar, or the Cayman Islands Yacht Club.
Exactly.
Japanese sold it to an Austrian group. Gosh, I remember all of them. Steinkogler and Eichinger, clients of my dad.
Right.
And then Guillermo Gil bought that from the Austrians, Stone Island, and Vista Del Mar.
Stone Island.
And he had a really strict, and I kind of admired this. His Mexican influence came into that development where he said, no, we need large chunks of land with a minimum buffer of 20 feet between each lot so that no homeowner could build on their 20-foot boundaries. So there was always a 40-foot boundary. Minimum lots were at least half an acre.
That's right.
And they all had to have terracotta roofs.
I do remember that. The Spanish barrel tiles.
That's the Spanish barrel tiles, exactly. And the resulting effect was that it was kind of a same feel, but whilst unique homes within the development behind those gates. And it created this sort of prestige as one of Cayman's first gated communities. And it continues today to be an excellent environment, community to live in.
It does.
Yeah.
And I think they've constructed everything on there, right?
There's only a few parcels that are left because what some people did, they bought the land opposite so that they wouldn't have a direct neighbor.
I see.
And that's where they keep their, a mini guest house perhaps, or their boat on the canal side. But yeah, a great development. And that's when we first met, I think, initially, wasn't it?
When we first met doing Vista Del Mar.
Doing Vista Del Mar transaction.
But, great client, lovely family, very good developer, excellent developer too.
Strict man, tough man, like we said. Strong handshake. So what are your weekends like? I mean, do you travel back to Tampa where you're based for the family?
Well, yeah, to the US. So generally Florida, sometimes Boston. And when I'm not there, I'm here.
Yeah. And what do you like most about Cayman? What is Cayman? Let's try and be as impartial as possible, because I know you obviously like Cayman, but what is it that you enjoy about Cayman that you don't necessarily find when you're elsewhere?
Well, sense of community, safety, tranquility. I'd say 7 Mile Beach as well. It's just a standout.
It's incredible.
A standout beach. Yeah. Honestly, you can't find a better beach. Honestly,
the white sand is pure white. It's incredible, and the turquoise water.
It's idyllic.
Yeah.
So there are so many ingredients. So as I said, look, community, people, safety, tranquility, incredible beaches, world class.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
Yeah. And we're now starting to cater to more of the high end. There are lots of billionaires in Cayman. I mean, you could say that only as little as a decade ago, there were only maybe one billionaire, but now we've got multiple billionaires, and you would never know it. You would never know it. Cayman's not that flashy, solid gold Ferrari people driving around. It's all very...
It's not a Monaco.
No, it's understated, isn't it?
And I think that's part of the attraction too. People can be themselves and just be incognito and enjoy the environment here. Yeah. So it is unique.
It is unique. It is incredible the number of nationalities that are in Cayman. Exactly. And the small town feels that you bump into people everywhere all the time.
From everywhere.
And it doesn't matter if it's the Cancer Society run walk something or a brunch or some, like we did 100 Men That Give a Damn. We do that quarterly, and you just have this cross section of society where people kind of pull together, and we have the same common goals and vision and life.
And that's one of the other great things about being in Cayman. It's so multicultural. I've met people from so many places in the world. Australians, there are lots of Australians. Yeah. Greeks, there's a Greek community.
Is there really a Greek community in Cayman?
And there's a Greek Orthodox community too. So they do bring in a Greek Orthodox priest twice a year. So
yeah, which is obviously enough people to make it worthy.
Yes.
I remember a few years back when Spain made it to the World Cup soccer final. I can't believe I said soccer. Football final, the World Cup final, football final.
Call it soccer. Yeah.
No, it's football. It's football. There was basically the Spain Spanish, not Central Latin America, the Spain Spanish community got together, and there was probably about 15, 20 people.
Exactly.
And this was maybe 8 years ago now, right? And now it's even more. And it was lovely because there was all the tapas and, just everything was sort of collected and that culture. And then outsiders, non-Spanish people obviously invited, myself included, of course. But I think you're right. It's I would also agree with you that the community in Cayman is this very warm,
it's embraced,
connected.
Exactly.
Everyone's part of the same family. And you walk around Cayman Bay and you'll just bump into people here, there, everywhere. Even driving down the road, you never know who you're flicking off in traffic. So even road rage in Cayman is somewhat tempered.
It's civilized.
Yeah, but listen, I'm really grateful for you coming in.
Thanks for having me in today, Mike.
I'm grateful for the professional work that you do, and I look forward to the continued relationship. And I thank you once more for everything you're doing for my clients, because the feedback and reports I get is it reflects on me, right? And that's what it's about. When you share business with professionals in different industries, you want to make sure that they're in safe hands. And I know that with you, George,
I really appreciate that, Mike.
Your team at Hive is excellent. So thank you very much.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, Mike.
All right, man.
Take care.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening, everybody.